They said the paper came on a Tuesday, but for me, time stopped. It was a blue envelope, the kind with the county seal that makes your fingers go cold before you even open it. My grandson, Leo, 9 years old. They said he'd thrown a rock through a squad car window. Said he'd been running with a crowd, causing trouble, spitting words at an officer that no child should know. That was the first lie. Leo doesn't run with crowds. He collects bottle caps and draws horses. He hasn't spoken a full sentence since his mother passed 3 years ago. I knew, but knowing doesn't matter when the paper has the seal on it. We get to the courthouse and it's like walking into a machine built to grind you down. The wood is too dark, the ceiling's too high. They put us in a room with fluorescent lights that hum like angry bees. Leo sat beside me, his shoes not touching the floor, his hands folded in his lap like he was trying to be small enough to disappear. I told him it would be okay. I lied to him, because from the moment the bailiff called our name, I saw the way the prosecutor looked at us, like we were gum on his shoe. He flipped through his file, didn't even glance at Leo, and told the judge, "Your Honor, we have a pattern of delinquency here. The grandmother is clearly unable to control him. We recommend a supervised placement." Pattern. There is no pattern. There is a boy who doesn't sleep through the night. There is a boy who carries a picture of his mother in his back pocket until it wears thin as paper. But the judge, he just nodded. He had these thick glasses and a face that had stopped listening years ago. He asked me if I had anything to say. I stood up. I said Leo was with me the night it happened. I said we were making dinner. I said I had the stove timer to prove it. The judge looked at his watch, then at the prosecutor, and he sighed. He said, "Madam, you are not a sworn witness, and frankly, your recollection is sentimental." The prosecutor laughed. It was a short sound, but it cut. The court reporter smiled. The bailiff shifted his weight, and I felt the room close in. They made Leo stand. He was so small behind the podium. His voice came out like a whisper, cracked at the edges. The prosecutor leaned down, got real close and said, "Tell the court what you did, son." Leo looked at me. I nodded. He said, "I didn't do it." The prosecutor laughed again. He said, "So the officer is lying?" And then the chief of police walked in. He didn't wait to be called. He just came through the side door, all starch and brass, and stood by the prosecutor like he owned the floor. He looked at Leo, then at me, and he smiled. He said, "Judge, this woman has been a problem for years. Calls us every time a car drives too fast down her street. She doesn't know what her grandson does when she's asleep." The judge didn't say a word. He just let him talk. And then the chief leaned against the bench, casual, like he was at a bar, and he said, "Let's be clear. I run this town. This is a waste of my time." I saw Leo's shoulders drop. He was giving up. I could feel it. He was learning, right then, that the world doesn't care if you're small. And I thought, if he learns that today, he will never be whole again. So I reached into my purse. My hands were shaking. I pulled out a folded piece of paper, a photo from the gas station across the street. The timestamp said 7:14 p.m. It showed my car in our driveway, and next to it, the squad car that was supposedly hit at 7:23 blocks away. I held it up. I said, "He was with me." The chief turned. His smile didn't waver. He said, "That photo doesn't prove anything. We can be in two places at once, can't we?" And then the courtroom door opened. A woman walked in, plain clothes, badge around her neck. She walked to the clerk and handed her a folder. She didn't look at the chief. She looked at the judge. She said, "Your Honor, I'm Internal Affairs. We've been tracking this vehicle for 6 months." The judge's eyes flickered. The chief's smile dropped for the first time. The woman opened the folder and said, "The vandalism to the squad car was self-inflicted. The officer filed a false report to cover a separate incident. And the chief," she paused, turned to face him, "the chief signed off on it. He also directed his officers to intimidate any witness who called to complain." She pulled out a recording log. Dates, times, names. My name was on it. My calls about the speeding cars. The room went silent. That machine that was built to grind us down, it just stopped. The judge took off his glasses. He looked at the chief, and for the first time, I saw something behind his eyes that wasn't boredom. It was calculation. It was fear. The chief started to speak, started to raise his voice, started to point at me and say, "This is nonsense." But the judge didn't let him finish. He just raised his hand. And he said, "Chief, you will not speak another word in my courtroom." He looked at the bailiff. The bailiff looked at the chief. And then, in front of everyone, in front of the prosecutor who had laughed, in front of the reporter who had smiled, the bailiff walked over and took the chief by the arm. He pulled his hands behind his back. The metal cuffs clicked. One click for the left, one click for the right. The chief stared at the judge. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He was a man who had just realized that running a town and owning a courtroom are two very different things. The judge looked down at Leo. His voice changed. He said, "Son, I am sorry." He dismissed the case. He cleared the record. He said we could go home. Leo took my hand. He was shaking. I was shaking. As we walked down the aisle, I passed the chief, still standing there in cuffs, his face red, his eyes wild. He looked at me. And the man who had told the judge he ran the town, the man who had mocked my grandson, the man who had laughed at a child, he asked for my forgiveness before they took him away.